Hey everyone, it's Dora from flippinghousesanpancakes.com, and today I thought I'd talk to you a little bit about the basics of house flipping for people who want to do their very first flip. But before I get started, if you like this video, please hit like, subscribe to my channel, and hit the bell for notifications so you find out every time I upload a new video. Now let's get started talking about the basics of house flipping. So I've gotten over the years a lot of calls and a lot of questions about how do I get started house flipping. People see a lot of TV shows, they see a lot of things online, and they think, wow, I can make a lot of money house flipping. Tell me how to do it because I really want to get into that. And I'm going to tell you some of the basics that I tell those people. And the first thing I tell them is that it is not as easy as it sounds. So let me explain some of the real basics that are important when you come to house flipping. And if you do those things wrong, your house flip is gonna be a mess. It is not gonna work and you're gonna have a flop. So you're gonna lose money. That's what I'm talking about. You don't wanna lose money. The point of house flipping is to gain money, to make money. So these are the basics that you have to think about. The first one is location. Everybody knows with real estate, location, location, location. Location is one of the most important things to think about when you're starting to do a house flip. When you go to buy a house to flip, you need to see what the neighborhood is like. You need to see what the other houses around you are like. You need to see, where public transportation is. You need to know, where are the highways? Are we close to a highway? Is this a location that somebody's going to want to buy a house in? Is it in the middle of a swamp? Nobody wants that house. Is it way off on a bumpy road? People are probably not going to want that house. Is it near a really good school? Then people might want to buy that house. It's all about not if you want to buy that house to fix it. It's about, are people going to want to buy that house from you after you fix it? So you need to really think carefully about the location of the house. Sometimes we've seen houses and it's like, wow, we really want that house. It's across the street from like a top-rated public school. You know that you're going to have people who want to buy that house. Maybe you're wanting to flip a house inside the Jewish community. Well, we all are in like a little bubble. We all live there in a small area. There's always demand. So therefore, you're most likely going to be able to sell that house. In a neighborhood that's kind of in transition, sometimes that's a really good place to find a house where maybe it was not a good neighborhood and it's improving a lot and people are starting to move into that area. Maybe that's a good place because there's potential to get a cheaper house and fix it up and sell it for more. That sometimes is a good area to look in. But a neighborhood that's going down, that's not going to be a good space for... I'm gonna pause that. Sorry, just have when you're filming in your house and the kids are around and your husband's taking phone calls and okay. Anyhow, it happens in every single video. Something like that happens in every single video. Let's get back to it. So when you're buying, sometimes I guess, like I said, in a transitional area, sometimes that's really great. But if you're in a neighborhood, you're looking at a house in a neighborhood that is not doing well, or that floods a lot, or that's really hard to access, or has something that people don't want, you need to be careful. If you buy a house in an area that's not good, people don't want that neighborhood, you're going to have a harder time selling that house, which is the whole point of a flip. All right, so that was location. My second thing to consider when you're looking at the first house to buy is the condition that the house is in. House condition. You're not building a brand new house here. You're buying a house and you're fixing it and you're selling it. That's what we do when we flip houses. Now, I personally and I think my husband does too, really enjoy a good fire flip. Those are awesome. The house is half burnt, totally gutted. You can do whatever you want with it. It's super fun. However, if it is your first house flip, do not take on a fire flip. Those are really a lot of work. And not only that, but they're going to be a lot of work that you don't know how to do. They're going to be expensive. They're going to be a lot of work. And it's all that stuff behind the walls that you have no idea how to deal with. Like, don't do it. If it's your first flip, you want to go with the most basic flip you can, which is just fixing things like paint color, maybe flooring materials, or maybe redoing backsplashes, or even installing a new kitchen. But you're going to want the cosmetic flip, and you're not going to want the real intense flips that we do. We started with those cosmetic flips, and they're great. And sometimes you don't make a huge amount of money on them because of the price that they cost to buy them if they're not too damaged, and the price it costs to fix them. Sometimes you make a small amount of money on them and not a lot, but it's the amount of headache that you're gonna have with a fire flip or something really disastrous, if you've never renovated a house before, it just is not gonna be worth it. So I always tell people, if it is your first flip, do not do a big one. Do something small where paint and carpet and new flooring, new paint, basic stuff is all you have to do. You have to fix some light fixtures. You have to replace a door. Really basic stuff, because fire flips and other similar houses where it's like a really big amount of work, that's going to be very hard for your first flip. So for a first flip, I would say in terms of house condition, get the house in the best condition you can, even if it means you're going to be making less money on the flip itself. Obviously, a firehouse, sometimes you can make a really good amount of money because you can usually get those for pretty cheap, since they're worth just the land that they're on, essentially, when you buy them. You can make a good amount of money on a fire flip. But if you have never done a flip before, you really should avoid them, because they are a lot of work. You need to know what you're doing when you do that. So maybe down the line, if you do a lot of flips, but when you're starting, definitely stay away from a fire flip. Okay. The next thing you need to contemplate is the cost. There's multiple costs involved in flipping houses. There is the cost to buy the house. So that's your first important one. If you pay too much money for that house up front, like when you buy it, you're already giving yourself a setback. So finding an inexpensive house to flip, or a house that has a lot of potential value, that's going to be your important thing. You need to make sure your starting cost is low. Then there's the renovation cost. And again, like I said, a fire flip is going to cost you a lot more to renovate than a cosmetic flip. In addition to that, when we first started, we always started with really small houses. We didn't do the big house flips. Why would we start with a very small house? Why do I always recommend start with a very small house? Small houses require less material. If you need less material to fix the house, it will cost you less. So the overall flip itself will cost less. If you buy the house for less, and then you buy a small one, so you flip it for less, so you fix it for less money, that's your best option on your first flip. The least amount of money that you have to spend to fix it is going to be the best option on your first one, because flipping houses is risky. This is not a risk-free activity. This is not a risk-free job. There's potential for making a lot of money. There's potential for losing a lot of money. So you need to be careful when you're paying for the house. You need to make sure you're getting a good price, a low price. When you are doing the actual work, you need to make sure you're keeping your costs down. One of the things that helps with that is buying a smaller property, but also knowing what you're doing and having good workers around you. And then the third thing to keep in mind in terms of cost is the price you're going to be able to sell the house for. You don't want to fix a house so that you could sell it for $800,000. I'm throwing out a big number there, when nothing else in the neighborhood has sold over 400, right? Know how much you're putting in, know how much you're buying it for, know how much you're putting it in to flip it, and know how much you have the potential to sell it for. If you have the potential to sell it for $350,000, you don't want to spend $350,000 on your purchase and your repairs, because then you made no money. And the whole point, again, was to make some money. Gotta make some money. It's a lot of work. So you definitely want to keep in mind what that final number has the potential to be. What is your sale price going to be? And make sure that all those numbers work. And I would even say that if you think your sale price is going to be $350,000, make sure that your prices, your numbers all work, even if you have to sell it for $325,000. Just because it's real estate, and sometimes we have to negotiate numbers up and down, right? So you need to make sure that you have that wiggle room when you are selling the house. So again, so far we talked location is important. We talked about the condition the house is in. That is very important. And the cost of buying, the cost of fixing, and the price that you sell at. The next thing that is super important, and when people ask me about flipping houses, I say, well, do you have a crew? Do you have workers? Are you doing all the work yourself? Do you know what you're doing, right? Who is doing the actual work? Okay. That's what you need to think about. Who is doing the actual work? Now, I have a crew that we've accumulated over the years. I have a crew. I know that they know what they're doing. I know that when I give them a job, they're going to do it correctly. Every once in a while, there's a little blip here and there, but for the most part, they're going to do it correctly. They're not going to overspend. They're not going to start it and never show up. If I'm having to hire an outside contractor, those are all risks. They're going to overcharge me. There's risks they're going to not show up to finish. All kinds of risks, or that they'll do a bad job, right? I'm very comfortable with my crew, and they're comfortable with me. We know exactly, they give me a price. I know it's going to work. I think we're good. So I'm perfectly happy. But when you're first starting and you don't have a crew to work with, and you're having to find people to do all the work, that is a challenge. So before you decide you're going to start flipping a house, you need to make sure you have workers, you have craftsmen to do the work. Do you have somebody who can install flooring? Are you doing it yourself? If you're doing it yourself, do you know how to do that? You want your work to come out correctly. You want it to be up to code. You want it to look beautiful. So you need to keep in mind that if I'm flipping a house, I need to know what I'm doing or hire somebody who does. And so that is something very important before you buy the house, before you start any of it, is to make sure you have people, even if those people are you, make sure you have people who can do the work. Okay? Super important. Super important. If you don't have a good crew, you've got nothing. So if you don't have good craftsmen, you've got nothing. You have a bad electrician, there was no point. So just like, it's all about who you've got to do the work. So keep that in mind. Now, if your flip just involves painting and carpet, then that's not going to be so hard. You can find a good painter. You can find a carpet company to come in and install carpet. If your flip involves more, then it's more important that you have the right craftsman. Okay? And one more thing to keep in mind is design. Now, this part I happen to really love. You know that I do layouts. I do house layouts. So if you're doing a big flip, a fire flip, where you've got to take down walls and you've got to move things, that's something I enjoy a lot. A lot of people will go into a flip and be like, I'm going to take down this wall. I'm going to do that. I'm going to rebuild the whole thing. Do you know anything about design? If you don't, you should hire somebody. One of the things that will ruin a house flip is a poor design. If somebody walks in and they hate the way your house looks, they will not buy it. If they hate the colors you put on the wall, they will not buy it. If the tile is wrong, they will not buy it. If you can't get into the bathroom because they set something up incorrectly, they won't buy the house. If it's awkward, if the layout is awkward, they won't buy the house. It's the design, not just the layout, but also the colors, the feel, the way the kitchen is laid out. All of those things contribute to somebody wanting the house or somebody hating the house. I did have one experimental bathroom that I did once with a tile, and no, I don't even think I have a photo of that one. It was a long time ago before I realized I should take photos of everything. That was really great. Where I did like a light tile and a dark grout, which you can definitely do, but I don't think, I'm not sure the guys did it quite right. I had a different tiler at that time, so I had a different tile installation guy, and it ended up being like a lot of grout and small tile, and it was really awkward. And all the reviews after people walked through the house were like, yeah, but there was that one bathroom. And so something small like that, we did sell it. We were fine. It got sold, and I never did that again, just so you know. But the design is what people see. Now, most of the work in the house is behind the walls. But the part that people see, the part that sells people, is not just the layout. The layout is very important. You get the wrong layout and it messes up everything. But in addition to the layout, it's that other stuff. It's the colors, it's the textures, it's just the overall feel of the house. And I will go in sometimes and be like, wow, this house feels traditional. This house feels super modern. This house needs blue. I had a house where I walked in, I was like, it's blue. This house is blue. Why? I don't know. I can't explain why that house needed to be blue, but it did, and it was amazing. Sold really well, so that was great. But the design aspect of the house is very important. So you do those wrong, you don't sell your house. Those are really the most basic things that you think about when you're dealing with getting ready to do a house flip: your location, your cost, the house condition, your crew, or your craftsmen, and the design. However, you need to think about one more thing before you get started on flipping a house right now. Interest rates are high. If you don't have the money, you're not going to be able to afford it. It's going to cost you a lot to buy a house right now. 2, the cost of materials have gone up a lot. If you don't have money, it's going to be hard. It's going to cost you a lot more to flip a house than it used to. And 3, because of those interest rates, not only will it be harder for you to buy the house, it's going to be harder for other people to buy the house from you. It's going to be harder to buy, it's going to be harder to sell, and it's going to cost more to fix. So you need to keep those things all in mind and be prepared that it's going to be a very risky, much more risky than it used to be. Go back a few years and it was a lot less risky than it is now. Right now, it's very risky to flip a house. And I feel like if you're brand new and you don't know some of those other things and you don't understand much about those, you should not put your money into flipping a house, because it's going to be super risky at the moment to flip a house, and you will lose. You will lose money. It is very easy to lose money on a flip. It's easy for it to go over budget. It's easy for it to not sell, especially in this economy right now. And so my personal recommendation, like I said at the very beginning of the video, is when somebody says to me, I want to get started flipping, I want to do my first house flip, my answer to them is, really? You shouldn't. Unless you have lots of money to spare, don't do a house flip. Unless you know exactly what you're doing already and you know exactly how to figure out all the numbers, don't do it. It's very risky right now to do house flipping. And yes, we continue to do it, but we've done it for so many years that we are comfortable with taking those risks because we can also figure out a lot of that stuff ahead of time. I know I have a good crew. I know how to figure out the right location. I know how to do the design work. I know how to figure out my costs and my sale prices and all those things. Because I know how to do all those things, it makes it slightly less risky for me. And I've also built up enough money that I don't have to worry as much about those loans, because those loans are really, really challenging. So that's where I would say to you, if it's your first flip, if you don't have money and you're risking it all, don't do it. Do not do it. As for me, to you, I'm telling you, it looks glamorous and amazing on TV. It is not glamorous and amazing. It is hard work and it is risky. And you don't want to be stuck in a point where you are left with no money, where you lose money on a property. If you enjoyed that video, if you liked some of those ideas, if you have more questions about house flipping that you'd like me to discuss in another video, please contact me, put it in the comments below, subscribe to my channel so you find out when I do upload more videos and you can see some of the work that we're doing on some of our house flips and of course other things that I do like kitchens and cooking. Please go ahead, give me comments, tell me what you want to see, and of course check out my website. It has more information, flippinghousesanpancakes.com.